and welcome to the pre-race show for SAES. My name is Kriya Gangia and it's been a while since we've been on your screens, but we're excited to be back with the first ever double-header weekend here in East London. It's been an exciting series so far and Ernest has a recap of all the action.
Yes, indeed, Kriya, but the event is looking great. But as we reach the midway point of this season, drivers are frantically doing calculations to make sure that they can get any sort of advantage going into the rest of the year. But before this week's race commences, let's see how the championship is looking and how the year has gone to this point. The South African GT Series kicked off at an incredibly twisty REDSTAR Raceway, with teams eager to kick off the season with a bang. Immediately, Team SCRIBANTE grabbed the pole for the season opener, and the Angel showed why they would be a force to reckon with all through 2022. Michael Stevens secured third on the grid, but by the time the race started, he had made the most of the start and slotted in behind the sister Hurricane. Angel unfortunately made a mistake in turn 1, leaving local legend Chop Sapuka to capitalize. Michael Stevens showed his class that would carry through the season with a fantastic overtake on lap number 7. Many battled rage throughout the field, and in the Pro-Am class it was a fierce dice between DTM Trophy debutant Patamba and Jason Ibbotson. But a spin by Ibbotson eventually caused Patamba to get ahead. As was expected, the pit stop shuffled the drivers, and with some drivers suffering minor issues in and out of the pits, Dane Angel was able to capitalize and get his car into second position. Letlaka and Sapuka unfortunately had to make some unscheduled pit stops, pushing them down the order. Michael Stevens would once again make headlines, but this time for setting a new course record at REDSTAR Raceway. But it was Silvio Scribante who went down in the history books as the first ever winner of an SAGT race. The second round of each race day is based on first round results. So this time Stevens sat on pole position with Silvio Scribante right behind. Even though these cars cost a fortune, door-to-door racing was still possible, and the class of the field showed, with Michael Stevens coming out on top early on and Dane Angel slotting in behind him. Once again, the Pro-Am drivers Ibbotson and Patamba faced off, and again Patamba came out ahead. But I suspect these two will be going at it once more in future. Dane Angel managed to pick up the pace after his pit stop and caught Stevens' teammate ALDO Scribante securing a pass and taking the win just 2 laps from the end. Silvio held on to third despite carrying 75 kilograms of success ballast. With the next venue being the home track for a few drivers, it would be an interesting turn of events. Round 2 would see the return of San Mudley in the imposing Mercedes-Benz AMG GT, with names like Aranjis, Neveling, Jackson and Daniel Rowe also joining the grid. Arnold Neveling set a spectacularly fast time of 56.995 seconds ahead of Michael Stevens, who this time was driving a McLaren and partnering local man ALDO Scribante. Aranjis bolted away from the chasing pack and built the lead, but as the pro drivers jostled, it was Dane Angel who managed to sneak by thanks to his teammate and Pro-Am Ferrari causing some confusion going onto the main straight. Once again, it would be the pit stops that decided the fate of some of the drivers, proving that it's not just about ultimate pace out on the road, but also team tactics and strategy. VW Works driver Daniel Rowe reveled in his guest drive, showing his pace all throughout the race. Hein Lategan put in a sterling performance in his Porsche Cup car, and San Mudley's new Mercedes-Benz also made a good showing in its first outing. The front engine layout different to the Porsche San Mudley is used to. Marcel Angel made a return after 2 years to race a solid race in the Pro-Am category, but Marius Jackson in the Audi R8 did not make it easy though. Marius, however, was still getting to grips with his new car. In the end, it was Aranjis who took the flag for race 1 in PE ahead of Silvio Scribante and Autohaus Angels Dane Angel in third. Aranjis and Neveling now saddled with 75 kilograms of ballast at an uphill battle ahead as they headed into the second heat of the PE race weekend. Chelsea Scribante swapped driving partners and was now partnering Darren Goodmans, a rear-wheel drive specialist himself. Marcel Angel had a fuel issue, but thankfully this didn't affect the race as much as the field rubbed their way into the first corner. As the saying goes, rubbing is racing, but this time Silvio came off second best, or so we all thought. Dane Angel was on a charge the entire race, but try as he might, he couldn't get past Stevens' McLaren, despite the slow puncture that would later cause Stevens to pit. In the Pro-Am class, Jackson, Marcel Angel and Goodmans had a mega tussle for multiple laps, with Angel eventually coming out on top. After an incredible pit stop, Dane Angel ended up ahead to take first place, followed by the Neveling-Oranjes pair. SCRIBANTE secured third ahead of Steven in the McLaren. The top 4 drivers are now separated by just 13 points going into the next round, and as can be seen from the points, consistency is key. But it's still early days, especially for the hard-charging Oranjes and Neveling pairing. 3 manufacturers are at the top of the championship list, but one name sits right on top, and that is Dane Angel. But as some of you might know, he will not be attending this weekend's race, which leaves the championship wide open for everybody to collect those precious championship points. Let's once again hear from local legend Sarel van der Merwe.
You know what has happened at this point in time in South Africa? We've got the biggest crop of brilliant drivers that we've ever had in the history of sport. We've got so many youngsters that are super quick, good, well-trained, and the only way they can get to Europe is with a rich dad. And I tell a lot of them, why don't you take the way I took through America? Because there's a million formulas in America. Once you've made yourself in America, Europe becomes a lot easier. Apart from Andretti and a few others, they've never produced the best racing drivers in the world. And you can easily slot in there. And I think a lot of rich fathers should go that way. They can save themselves millions. Well, look, it's nice if you have supercars. I know only a few people can afford it, but it draws the crowds. And you can, with the supercars as a top level, you can fill in a hell of a lot of space underneath that. And you need a good day at the racing, because that is what brings people, not only one series. And like I said, we've got so many very, very good young drivers now that I've identified and seen. Essentially, endurance racing will breed other category drivers. And some people come from there into the... And of course, endurance series is big. There's a world championship, which is very, very competitive and good racing to watch on TV and all the rest of it. And they pay good money. That is the other thing that you think about. So I would still advise people to... It's a lot cheaper. You can race 3 years in America for 1 year in Europe. These rich fathers. So, and by then, if the guy's really good, the Americans will pick him up, like they did me. So, if I had a son that I wanted to race and I had the money, I would go through America.
As Sarel mentioned, endurance racing is a breeding ground for talent, and that's exactly what we saw in the SAE Championship thus far. This year's SAE Championship has seen the teams complete 2 4-hour races so far, the first taking place at REDSTAR Raceway. The drama started early with hot favourite Nick Adcock suffering an engine failure in practice. They did make it to the start line, however, but this left Jeffrey Kruger to take pole position. Mikhail Patamba and Michael Steven teamed up and managed second, with Letlaka and Sepuka just behind. The rest of the field was made up of a mix of very fast tin tops and a slew of backdraft Cobras driven by various drivers with various backgrounds. After just 3 corners, Adcock was in second place, leaving all wondering if this would be an easy come from behind victory for the team. Patamba slotting into third position. Adcock easily took the lead as Kruger pitted, suffering VTEC issues. After 3 hours, the Ligier had a 2-lap lead over Patamba and Steven. Endurance racing can be won and lost in many ways, and some drivers were glad to see the safety car come out, others not so much. The drama continued into the night, with drivers sliding off the circuit under tricky conditions, with Jensen losing any advantage that he had gained sitting on the side of the track or sitting in the pits. In Class D, the bucketless racing polo took top honours. The backdraft always provided great action, and it was Greg Thornton and Colin Ellison that would kick off their campaign with a class win, in arguably the most competitive class in the field. Team Morganroo took second in class in their very first endurance race, and Letlaka and Sepuka took third in class in the McLaren. The 4 hours of PE was an exciting affair, and as usual, the drama started early on. The PE race favourites, this time Botma and Kruger, had similar problems suffered by absentees Adcock and Jensen in race 1. And just like their counterparts, they fitted the engine in just a few hours, but had to start from the back of the grid. Tavares and Lategan, also firm favourites, suffered mechanical issues before the start of the race weekend. With the favourites starting at the back, it was young Kwanda Mokwena who led off the field with Sun Moodley alongside. Sun Moodley unfortunately spun out going into the first corner, leaving him to do a recovery drive for his 1 hour outing. Botma climbed the ranks fast and snatched the lead from the Mokwena Mia GT4 Audi, and Tavares slotted into third place. The backdraft slingshot of McLaughlin and Steve Clark had some serious pace, so fast in fact that they led for a period, till power steering problems set in. The Class E backdrafts put on a show for the entire event with bumper-to-bumper racing happening all through the field. But once again, it was Allison, this time partnered by Radloff, who were ahead in Class E and an incredible 4th overall. After a torturous 4 hours, Hein Lategan and Tavares brought their Porsche 911 Cup car over the line in first place, followed by Clark and McLaughlin, and the young Mokwena and Mia taking third. It's a mixed bag in the SAE Championship, with Titan Historics Colin Ellison showing that to win overall, it takes consistency. But as we head into the Winter Motorsport Festival, many drivers are returning to form to get their piece of that championship pie. Rian Botma leads Class A, and the Class B battle is wide open, as are many of the other classes at the halfway point.
Well, it's definitely shaping up to be an exciting double-header weekend. And as you can see behind me, Potter's Pass, one of the fastest corners in South Africa, is one to watch out for as we get underway at 8:10 tomorrow morning with the South African Endurance Series. Make sure you don't miss it.